like I've just lost a chunk of my December because in the last week I've been struck down by the obligatory pre-Christmas illness that I really could have done without, but every single year without fail I feel like it just comes and takes down a chunk of people right in the time of year when you could do with being ill the least. But I'm pleased to say I feel like I'm emerging from the ashes feeling a lot better, but the last few days have just felt a little bit rubbish, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been still working and everything, so it hasn't been like too bad of an illness, but it's just one of those things where everything feels just that little bit harder. You feel like you're moving at way more of a snail's pace and just like everything hurts a little bit more than it should. And I feel like with a blocked nose and when your ears feel like you can't hear properly and your throat hurts, you just kind of feel as though you're not really enjoying life as much as you would like to, especially at this time of year. But coming out the other side now, I'm feeling way better, but also just slightly bitter about the fact that it has happened right before Christmas, but equally I guess grateful that it happened far enough in advance that I should be feeling tip-top again when Christmas Day rolls around, which I am terrified and flabbergasted to say is actually only 1 week and 1 day away from Christmas now, which just feels insane to say. I feel like December goes so quickly every year, but especially when you lose a couple of days to illness, then it just seems to come around at a scary fast rate, and now we are just 1 week away from Christmas Eve, so that's a little bit wild, but I'm feeling very glad to be back to full health at least and ready to enjoy the final and arguably most exciting part of the festive period. Now, because I have been feeling a little bit under the weather, and specifically I've had a terrible blocked nose and a sore throat, I've actually fallen behind on the last few days of my tea advent calendar because I just felt like I wasn't fully able to appreciate all the flavours, because I feel like with tea it can be quite delicate and subtle in terms of the flavours, and I just felt like my taste wasn't quite up to scratch, so I kind of wanted to make sure I wasn't wasting the flavours away. But now that I'm feeling better, I'm back on board, and today is actually the 17th of December, but I'm opening door 15 right now, and I'm pleased to say that this one is actually chocolate rooibos tea. Now, the other day I had chocolate cake tea, and that was actually my favourite one of the whole calendar. I feel like the chocolate flavour was just so on point, and I love rooibos. So this one does have a really nice chocolatey smell, but it kind of in my mind smells like a chocolate gingerbread. I feel like the rooibos is adding like a warmth to the flavour that I feel like is just elevating the chocolate and adding a bit of festive spice. So I'm very excited to try this one, so let's give it a go. I just think rooibos, like you could put rooibos in anything and it would taste good. I feel like it's just such a warming flavour combination. I would say the chocolate flavour in this one isn't as strong as it smells compared to the chocolate cake one, which both smelt and tasted so intensely chocolatey, but it's definitely a flavour that I would enjoy and definitely buy again. I feel like that's a really nice combination and definitely gives you that warming chocolate, gingery, hug in a mug kind of vibe, which is exactly what I wanted this morning. Now, because I'm 3 days behind, I'm going to be tasting 3 different teas throughout the course of today, but today is also a bit of a life admin, get on top of errands kind of day. Again, having lost the last few days of my life to feeling horrendously unwell, I feel like I just need to catch up, so I'm planning to start the big pre-Christmas spring clean of the house and start getting everything in ship shape, ready to enjoy Christmas. I'm also planning to do a little bit of gift wrapping so that that can start to sort of be chipped away, because I hate the feeling of a last minute Christmas Eve wrap all of the presents and lose your entire Christmas Eve because it takes so long. So I'm going to try and chip away at that throughout the day. I'm also heading out to my favourite bagel shop this morning because I've heard that they have a festive bagel and I want to get my hands on some of them because I do not want to miss out on any festive bagels, because to be honest, why would I want to do that? And finally, we are obviously just over a week away from Christmas, and also that means that we are like only less than 2 weeks away from the end of the year, and with that said, my mind has very much turned to which books I want to prioritise before 2023 is up. 2023 has been a year of way less reading than normal for me. I think I'm currently on just over 30 books, whereas for the last few years I've had a target and met that target of 75 books a year, so I'm way behind on that this year. But for that reason, I feel like it's all the more important to really focus on quality over quantity, and as we are emerging towards a brand new year, I want to sort of get into a really good habit with reading and also like finish the year on a high. So I'm looking at my shelves and trying to decide which books I want to prioritise. I've got roughly 2 weeks, probably just under 2 weeks left of reading, and obviously one of those weeks I'll be off work because it'll be the Christmas holiday, so I feel like I do have a good shot to finish at least another couple of books, but I'm hoping for maybe like between 4 and 6 books to finish before the end of the year. I've got quite a few to choose from and I'm feeling intense pressure to make sure I make the right decision. But of course the very first book that I'll be focusing on is Little Women, because I want to finish this one before Christmas, and I've given myself the goal of finishing the final chapters on Christmas Eve. So that's the first thing on my agenda, and I haven't done any reading for the last couple of days, but I'm hoping to get the fire on later and do some cosy reading by the fire of Little Women, which I think will be lovely, and then I'll choose what other book I'll be focusing on. I'd love to know, are you like me, someone who puts a lot of pressure and emphasis on books at like a certain time of year, like the first book you read in a year or the last book you read in a year feels like it has to be a good one because there's like a significance to it? Or do you feel like that doesn't really make any sense because I could just finish a book the next day even if it is a brand new year? I'd just love to know, is that just me? Am I putting too much pressure on it? Or are you the same, where you like to give significance to your first and last books of the year? And if so, what books are you going to be prioritising? Because I would love recommendations. It's not too late to get orders in for books, so I'm thinking if you have anything that you think I desperately need to read before the end of the year, let me know, because I will definitely try and get my hands on it and do some good reading before the end of 2023. So with that said, I've rambled on long enough. I'm going to slurp down a little bit more tea, head out of the door to go to the bagel shop, trying to get there nice and early so I beat the crowds and get the best bagels is what we're looking for. So I'll catch up with you later.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne?
It is exactly 1 week until Christmas, and it is also the last Monday of work for the whole of 2023. So I'm feeling pretty positive, not to mention the fact that yesterday I had the foresight to get myself a cinnamon roll from the bagel shop, so I'm just about to make myself a cup of tea and have a cinnamon roll for breakfast. So Mondays are not all bad. And I've also got the luxury of choice when it comes to tea, because I have got still 3 doors left to try, because I only ended up having one of the teas yesterday. So I have the flavours of the 16th, 17th and 18th, which is today, to choose from. So I'm just going to look and see which one sounds the nicest. So what do we have? Okay, 16 is eggnog. Then we had, oh actually, do I have more? Do I have 4 teas to try? That's ridiculous. Okay, so we've got peach tea, eggnog, jasmine fruits and everyday breakfast. Now I'm not gonna lie to you, the only one of those teas that is really screaming out to me is eggnog from door 16, because the other ones just don't seem particularly exciting. They just seem like pretty standard normal teas. So I'm gonna get the 16th out, see what on earth eggnog tea tastes like, because if I'm honest, I actually don't know what eggnog tastes like. I've never had it, so I don't really know what I'm like. I suppose that means that I've got fairly low expectations. Oh my god, I think that I might have just broken the tea bag. Oh no, we're good. Okay, panic over. So yeah, I guess I've got like a pretty neutral expectation for what eggnog will taste like, because quite frankly I've never had it. Careful Raymond, it's hot water. Okay. It does smell nice actually. It smells very nice in fact. Okay, I'm gonna get some milk because this is looking to me like a tea that would do well with milk. I feel like I've never really mentioned this, but we actually get milk delivered from a milkman. So I've got these like glass bottles of milk, and I never imagined that milkmen would deliver any dairy-free milk, but they do oat milk and they also do chocolate oat milk. But I have to say that this has absolutely spoiled shop-bought oat milk for me, because it is the creamiest, most luxurious oat milk I've ever tried. So I get 2 bottles of this a week, and then I do often have just a carton of regular like oat milk in the cupboard, just in case I run out of the good stuff. But it is genuinely so good. So it feels nice because it's obviously more environmentally friendly, because you return the glass bottles and they get reused and you're not using like plastic cartons, but also just based on how good it is. It's so delicious. So big fan of the Milkman oat milk. The chocolate one is really good as well. But I had to stop ordering that one because, quite frankly, I don't need to be going through like a whole pint of chocolate milk every single week, as much as it is delicious. So there we go. And where is my cinnamon roll? I also got some bagels to take away, so let's find it. Not only do they make exceptional bagels, but they also make what I personally think are the nicest cinnamon rolls I've ever tried. They're absolutely delicious, so cannot wait to try that for breakfast. Well, not try it, but just enjoy it. Now I think we'll have a cup of tea, eggnog tea. I'm still a little bit sniffly, so my sense of smell is not what it should be, but we have to make do. I think what that reminds me of. That was way too hot. Oh, okay. What I'm going to do is let this tea cool down, and I will come back to you when I'm at my desk and give you a proper update, because that does taste just like a nice cup of tea, but I feel like I'm tasting it way too soon after boiling the kettle, and so I can't fully appreciate the flavours because my mouth is getting slightly burnt. But happy Monday. I, for one, am very excited that we are only 1 week away from Christmas, because I feel like this week is the most exciting week in the calendar. Slightly concerned that Raymond, I'm just going to get a little clip of him from my perspective, but if the camera suddenly topples over, this will be why, because he is looking very suspiciously right behind the tripod, so I hope he's going to be good. But I think the tea is now cool enough that I don't think it's going to burn my mouth anymore. Raymond, do not knock that over. So I'm going to give it a taste test, a try test. I'm going to try it and I'm going to give it a taste test. So without further ado, eggnog tea, slightly cooler, so hopefully we can taste it better. The smell is very delicate and a little bit floral, I would say. And I think the taste lives up to that as well. It's not, there's no standout identifiable flavour like, you know, cinnamon or licorice or chocolate. There's nothing that's like really jumping out as like, oh yeah, that's what this tea tastes like. It just tastes like a tea, like a cup of, I'd say like a black tea with a floral fruity undertone, but nothing too overpowering or summery, so like quite mellow floral, but nice. I can't confirm or deny whether it's a good eggnog tea, because like I say, I've never tasted eggnog, so I don't know exactly what it's going to be like, what it's attempting to go for. But what I do know is that it is quite a nice cup of tea. I must say I'm slightly disappointed that we're now almost at Christmas and that was the only festive flavour from the last like 4 days. It seems a little bit disappointing because we have had some really good flavours throughout, but I often find that with these tea advent calendars they can taper out towards the end. We do obviously have another 7 days, so fingers crossed we have some good flavours that pop up in that time. But yeah, the other flavours that I've got to try, peach, breakfast tea, jasmine and flowers, like they're just not particularly exciting. But either way, cinnamon roll was delicious. This tea is nice and tasty. And we're 1 week away from Christmas. Now I have been thinking a little bit more about the books that I'm prioritising before the end of the year, aside of course from the lovely Little Women, which I need to do a lot more reading of because I'm definitely falling behind. But I've actually ordered 2 books today. Well, they're meant to be arriving today, I ordered them yesterday. So the first one is called Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. I saw this on a TikTok video the other day, recommended as books I think that will like shock you or that are about like difficult and uncomfortable subjects, and my understanding is that it is about a boy called Noah who basically does something to some children at a swim practice and ends up going to prison for it. And the book I think focuses on the conflict between his parents. His mother wants to stand by him and sort of like help him rehabilitate, and his dad wants nothing more to do with him, doesn't even want him to come back to the house after he's out of prison. And it was likened to We Need to Talk About Kevin, which is a similar book about a young boy who does something horrific and the impact that has on his mother as someone who completely disagrees with what he's done but also feels a certain sense of obligation as his parent. So I think it could be interesting but probably quite an uncomfortable read. Then the other one is one that I've basically taken a recommendation. I need to start work in a minute, that's what that alarm is telling me. But the other one is telling me no, a recommendation from my friend M. So it was a secondary recommendation because she didn't actually tell me to buy this book, but I've taken it from her Instagram story. So this one is called Carla by Colin Walsh, and Em recently did a thing with her boyfriend which was inspired by an Icelandic tradition where I think basically you swap books and chocolate and then have like a cozy evening eating chocolate and reading the book that someone else has given you. And so Em's boyfriend got her this book, Carla, and she read it this weekend and seemed to be very, very highly recommending it on her Instagram stories. It's an Irish book about a group of friends, and I think someone ends up passing away, and there is, I guess, like a mystery to be solved, and also I guess the like unpicking of like what that does to a group of friends when someone goes missing, and essentially like how that sort of shatters a unit of people. So it sounded really interesting, and I felt like definitely ticked my boxes of things that I would look for in a book. So I'm very excited for both of them. I'm hoping that they both do arrive today, and then I'll be able to start reading one of them. I'm unsure which one to go for. I feel like the one that I'm more likely to really enjoy is probably Carla, so I feel like that's the one I'm probably going to go for, but equally it may well be, because I ordered them separately, that one arrives first and that makes the decision for me. But either way, I'm about to start my last Monday of the year, for working at least. There is another Monday after this one, but I'm going to start my work day, and I will catch up with you later on for some reading. This morning's tea smells absolutely delicious. Today's flavour is pear cinnabon, and it just smells exactly like, I want to say like an apple crumble. Obviously the smell is clearly pears and not apples, but it just smells so fruity and cinnamony and absolutely delicious. It's also a rooibos based tea, so I've got it with a little bit of oat milk, and it smells amazing. So I'm going to give this a quick try because I actually had the foresight to make this and leave it on the side whilst I finished a little bit of reading, and so I'm already ready to give it a taste. That is nice. That's just like a really comforting flavour combination. You just have like the nice delicate flavour of pear, which I feel like is very similar to apple, but just like a slightly milder version in my opinion, and then the lovely warming taste of cinnamon. So absolutely delicious. Now I wasn't expecting to be coming to you with a finished book this morning, but the reality is that I actually am. Saving Noah arrived yesterday and I started reading it pretty much as soon as I finished work. I did squeeze in a few chapters of Little Women, but then I got started on this, and when I say I flew through this book, I really mean it. I read over 100 pages yesterday evening, and then this morning I got up with enough time to finish off the rest of the book before I started work. It is quite a short book. It's only just over 250 pages, and the book is quite tall, but if I show you, like, there are really big margins around the pages, so even though it's like quite tall, it's also, realistically, if this was the size of a normal book, I think it would be even shorter than 250 pages because the text is also quite big. So realistically it shouldn't have taken me that long to get through anyway, but I really didn't expect to read it as quickly as I did. Now this was a book that I feel like I've got mixed feelings on, but I also did expect that just given the nature of the topic and what the characters are going through. But essentially the book starts as Noah is just coming out of treatment, so we're thrown straight into the reality of his parents having a very different opinion on him and how to approach him now that he has like finished his treatment and is getting out of like prison essentially. And I feel like it's a difficult one because obviously you as the reader feel a certain way about the character, and you definitely empathise more with the father who has like a very clear view that what has happened is wrong and is struggling to sort of come to terms with forgiving his son, whereas the mother just seems to be living in a state of complete denial, which is also something that you empathise with, because I can only imagine that obviously as a parent your desire is obviously to like protect and believe in your child, and when they've done something that goes against that, you could either, I guess, like have that parental love completely shattered, or as in the case of this mother, you just like blindly have faith in the child regardless of what they've done. So I feel like the book does a great job of sort of showing both extremes of how parents could respond to this situation. And one thing that I do think was really well done in this book is that I think it would have been very easy for this to be a book that was written very much about shock factor and giving loads of unnecessary detail just for the sake of providing like a really shocking and dramatic story, whereas I think by starting at the point of treatment having finished and then just having a couple of like retroactive like references to what had happened but not really going too much into like the specific details, I think it manages to create a story that creates a dialogue around like the reality of trying to treat this condition rather than just creating a shock factor for the sake of it. So I feel like it was quite a pared back approach compared to what it could have been, which I think was, I guess, like a more respectful way to cover a topic like this. The author as well is a childhood psychologist, so comes at this, I think, from a perspective of a lot more knowledge than someone who just wanted to write like a shocking book. So I feel like that definitely comes through to the way that it's discussed and the way like the treatment plan comes into the plot as well. But it is definitely an interesting book. I would say in terms of the writing style, it wasn't the best. It was very much a like, this happened and this happened and this happened descriptive writing style, rather than one that was like, I don't know, it didn't speak to me as like a particularly talented writing style. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was quite simplistic and that definitely made it an easy to get through book. The end, I will say, definitely surprised me. So I think I'd probably give this one 3 stars. It definitely isn't a book that I'd be like raving about or think is like the best thing I've ever read, but it certainly was interesting and one to make you think. So definitely an easy one to get through as well, I'd say, because I mean literally started it yesterday evening, finished it this morning. Now my other book that I ordered, Carla, hasn't arrived yet, but I've got a notification that it's being delivered today, so I'm going to be starting with that one later on, and I can't wait because I feel like that one, while this one was an easy to get through book that was quite alright, I feel like Carla is going to be one of those books that is really going to speak to me and is going to be like a standout read, or at least that's what I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. So I'm going to finish off my pear cinnamon tea and get on with work for the day, and I'll catch up with you later on, hopefully with some more thoughts on a new book. Today is the 21st of December, which is the summer solstice? I don't think so. It is the winter solstice. Now for summer solstice, we always make an effort to get up really early, like pre 4 AM, and go to this incredible vantage spot near us where you can watch the sunrise. We first did it in 2020 during lockdown, and I was doing my yoga teacher training at this point, so we did like 108 sun salutations on this incredible viewpoint, and it was just like such a nice way to like welcome in the longest day of the year. And then we went back to the same place in the evening and watched the sunset, and I feel like it's a really nice thing to do in the summertime when obviously it is like bright and sunny and warm, whereas the winter solstice, I never really do anything much to mark it, although I do love the solstice because it's obviously a marker of the fact that today is the shortest day of the year with the least daylight, and then after today it's going to start getting lighter and lighter incrementally every day until summer, which is very exciting. But I feel like you have to put a little bit less effort in for the winter solstice, because obviously unless for some reason you are sleeping your entire day away, you are going to be awake for the sunrise and sunset, because the sun doesn't rise until after 8 AM and then it goes down before 4 PM, which is just insane. But all that to say, it is the winter solstice, and I feel like winter is taking a toll on me, and the fact that it is the final week of work before before Christmas, because I feel like I've just been all over the place, and although I felt like I was coming out of the other side of my illness, I felt like my sore throat has come back again, so I'm definitely feeling in need of the rest that is to come over the Christmas break. But I have completely lost track of days, and although today is the 21st of December, I actually completely forgot to open the tea calendar yesterday, so I've got 2 teas to try today. So I'm gonna go with day 21st, which was obviously yesterday, and that is ice cream Earl Grey, which I think sounds delicious. Ingredients are black tea, cornflower petals and natural flavours. Now I love an Earl Grey in general, you don't even need to do anything to it to make it delicious. I feel like it is probably my go-to tea when I'm out and about. I would always go for an Earl Grey over an English breakfast, even though when I'm at home I obviously have a lot of the biscuit flavour of English breakfast. Out and about, I feel like Earl Grey is just such a lovely flavour combination that I love it. So, oh, that's interesting. It smells so floral, but there is a creaminess to it, which is obviously where the ice cream comes in. Oh my god. Ah! He's so cute, but Jesus Christ, when his claws dig in and he decides to use me as a climbing frame, it hurts. You don't understand how much your claws hurt me. Go on, hop down. Okay, so kettle is already boiled, so let's make ice cream Earl Grey. Little Raymond here is actually completely unaware of the fact that this morning we're going to the vets because it's time for his 2nd vaccination. So that should be fun. I also thought I would update you on how Raymond and Oscar are getting on, because I honestly could not have asked for a better situation. Oscar seems to have completely adopted Raymond as his own baby. He like licks him and they cuddle up together. Raymond is always following Oscar around, and honestly I'm so happy because it's definitely a gamble bringing a new cat in when you already have an existing cat and you don't know how they're going to take to each other, but it could not have gone better, so I'm very pleased about that. And now we need some oat milk for my ice cream Earl Grey. Now I've obviously, as I mentioned, been waiting for a book to arrive, which was Carla by, is it Colin Walsh, I think was the author's name. Long story short, it has been lost by Amazon, so I've got a refund on the way, but the book is probably not going to arrive before Christmas, so I think I might try and find that in an actual bookshop at some point. But I do feel as though that is the universe telling me to stop getting distracted and to actually focus on reading Little Women, because I do keep getting distracted and I haven't read anywhere near as much of that book as I was hoping to. So that's the universe telling me, and me saying, okay, I'm going to focus on Little Women and get that book finished. So that is going to be my reading priority for the rest of the week. I also have some fun plans this afternoon after work. So obviously going to work, then I'm taking my lunch break at the time when I need to take Raymond to the vets, working the rest of the day, and then after work I'm going to Sarah's house and we're doing our annual like friendmas thing where we have a dinner together, watch something good on TV, basically just do a little Christmas celebration together, which we have done every year for the last few years. So very much excited for that this afternoon. So without further ado, I'm going to try this tea. I have a strong suspicion that I'm not going to be able to taste it as much as I would have liked, because I can't smell very well, and I feel like it's always when you can't smell that your taste is impacted. But either way, I'm sure it's going to be a nice Earl Grey. It is just a really floral Earl Grey. Like, so if you don't like the floral notes of Earl Grey and you prefer the more citrusy ones, I would say this wouldn't be a tea for you. But I like both types of Earl Grey, ones that are like super like orangey and lemony and ones that are really floral. So on the whole, I think that's a very nice cup of tea, and I'm going to enjoy that whilst I get on with work for the morning. Head to the vets with Raymond, and then I'll probably catch up with you later on when I'm on my way to Sarah's house for friendmas. We have just arrived at the vet and Raymond is absolutely fuming, bless him, but we're gonna go get vaccinated. Yeah! So, obviously at Sarah's house for friendmas, and she was just telling me that this December she set herself the challenge of only reading festive books throughout the whole of December, which I feel like is such a vibe. I've definitely not even slightly lived up to that expectation this year. I think I've read, I don't even know if I've read maybe one festive book this December.
Really?
So let the side down. But Sarah has been holding down the fort for everyone, and you've just got 3 new festive
I've just got
books.
3 new ones because the problem was that they were all romancy, but I feel like I've romanced.
That's the thing, because I feel like
you know?
festive romances, I love them, but they can get a little bit samey if you read them too many in a row, because the formula is very much a Hallmark movie. So I thought it'd be fun to do a little festive book haul from Sarah's books of some books that are maybe like a little bit less classic Christmas, but still festive. So without further ado, you can tell me what you've got.
Okay, so
react accordingly.
the first one is Murder on the Christmas Express. 18 passengers, 7 stops, 1 killer. This kind of gives me the vibes of Murder on the Orient Express.
I feel like that's
But,
definitely the
I think that's what they were going for. But yeah, and it's set on Christmas Eve on a sleeper train.
See, I'm like...
So I just
a
thought...
little bit jealous, because I also just think the cover of this one is exceptional. So, big fan. And I feel like just books that have like those sorts of like 18 passages, 7 stops, 1 killers, they grab me immediately, they do.
The next one is Who Killed Father Christmas? This is the British Library.
And
crime
other seasonal
classic.
mysteries.
Oh, another seasonal mysteries. I've always seen these, but I've never actually gone for it. And I thought they're short stories, crime short stories at Christmas, which is something I'm not really gone for.
It's quite niche.
Well, yes, I thought I'd give it a go.
I think short stories can be a bit hit and miss, but equally, you don't have to commit
nice
too much,
cover.
do you? So
Cover.
it's a bit like, if it's good,
There you go.
if it's good, great, but also if it's not,
That's the
you
thing,
can
yeah.
get through it quite quickly.
And then the last one is an Agatha Christie one. This was not the one I wanted. This is The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding and other, poisoned plum puddings and overheard quarrels. And it's 6 uniquely baffling cases. So it's like 6 short stories. She's written another one, or she has written another one, obviously she's no longer with us. I think she definitely did, isn't she? Oops. There was one where it's an actual Christmas book. It's not a short story, it's a full novel, but they didn't have it, so I went with this one.
I do love the cover of that as well. I feel like, I have to say, I prefer Poirot to Miss Marple, so the fact that this is Poirot short stories, I feel like...
I don't think I've actually read any Miss Marple, you know.
I've read...
Because Murder on the Orient Express is Poirot.
So is Death on the Nile,
Oh yeah.
and others, which I can't remember.
And then there were none.
That's got no detective. The whole premise of that is essentially that it's a group of people who have been put together, and then they figure out that they've been lured there under false pretenses, and then they have to try and solve it, but they're getting killed off one by one. They know that one of the people there
Oh,
is the
you
one
know what? That
who's
sounds
lured
quite
them.
fun,
It's
actually.
so good, it really is.
Oh, I think I'll read that.
But yeah, no detective, so that one's a bit more unique. But I do
I'll have a
definitely
look at
prefer
that one.
Poirot to Marple personally. But
Yeah, I've not delved into Miss Marple.
I like Miss Marple. Just seems like a classic Agatha Christie.
She just
but
reminds me of Angela Lansbury though, because isn't that who played her in the TV show? I can't
probably
remember.
right, yeah. So there we go, a little festive book haul from Sarah. I feel like,
You're welcome.
yes, you are welcome. I feel like
Thank you.
I'm a bit
I don't know
jealous,
if
to be
that's
honest.
really good, so we'll see.
Wonder if she'd notice if I just put these in my bag and run out the door
Who,
now.
I've got enough books.
Wow, I look very egg-like today, but I have just closed my laptop for the last time in 2023. Work is done, and that means that Christmas has officially started. Now, if I was being sensible, what I would do right now is crack open my tea advent calendar and get on with some reading of Little Women, but what my heart so desperately wants to do is to make a fully loaded hot chocolate with vegan cream and marshmallows, and to watch the 2019 adaptation of Little Women. So I think that's exactly what I'm gonna do, and I absolutely cannot wait. I feel like it is just the perfect way to welcome in the official start of the Christmas break. So yesterday I obviously watched Little Women, which was just exceptional. Many a tear was shed, but it is just such a wonderful film to watch. I am obsessed with it. I have been getting little clips of it on TikTok almost non-stop throughout December, and so it finally felt like it was time to watch it because it is just such a cinematic masterpiece, visually so incredible, and I feel like the way that all of the characters are brought to life by the actors is just top notch. Absolutely love it. But I was inspired to post an Instagram poll asking people if they were team Amy and Laurie or team Joe and Laurie. Now, I personally always have been and always will be A, an Amy March defender for life, and B, team Amy and Laurie, because I just think it makes sense. But so many people were Joe and Laurie, and I kind of knew, I wasn't surprised as such, but the official result of the poll as it currently stands is that 46% of people were correct and voted for Amy and Laurie, and then 54% of people voted for Joe and Laurie. But I thought it would be interesting to open up the discussion here as well, in case any of you didn't see that Instagram poll. So I do just think it's such an interesting one. My personal perception is that Joe and Amy are far more similar than a lot of people seem to acknowledge, and I feel like it is because of their similarities that they clash with each other as sisters, because they are both ambitious and driven, but also ultimately can be quite selfish, and yet have their moments where they like come into their own and care for other people, but also like they're not afraid to put their own ambitions above other people's happiness. And I feel like they're very similar, but because the majority of the story comes from or focuses on Joe's perspective, I think that just naturally inclines people to look and favour her storyline, and then sort of miss the similarities between her and Amy, because I don't think that Jo necessarily sees the similarities herself, and so then you're left in this situation where you're reading a story that's mostly from the perspective of one sister who often clashes with this other sister. And so I think a lot of readers then just naturally view Amy for her like flaws and faults, rather than looking at the parts of her that are similar to Jo. And a lot of the things that people fault Amy for are things that they value Jo for. So I always find it frustrating in that sense. But equally, I love both of them. Don't get this wrong or think that I'm a Jo hater. I really like them both, but I always find it really like a shame that people seem so harsh on Amy, especially given that she's only meant to be like 12 at the start of the book. So like she has a lot of growing up to do, and we definitely see that happen. But either way, I feel like when it comes down to the decision between Jo and Laurie and Amy, the decision in my mind comes down to the fact of like what the characters want. And I feel like Laurie obviously kind of switches sides and has like a revelation about like what was like, I guess, a childish fantasy versus what ends up being like a long-term happier relationship. But ultimately, like, Jo didn't want to marry Laurie. She wasn't in love with him, and that wasn't the future that she wanted for herself, and it was what Amy wanted. So I feel like that, more than anything else, if you bring it down to like what the protagonists actually want and go with that rather than like hoping for a different future. Although I can see to an extent the like childish appeal of Jo and Laurie, and I feel like you can fall into like the same category as why Laurie originally wanted to be with Jo, is because it was kind of based on like childish ambition rather than reality. So that's just my like 2 pence on the situation. But I would love to know in the comments down below if you've either read Little Women, watched any of the movie adaptations. Do you have an opinion on whether you are... Excuse me, Raymond, that's very rude. He's got this little mouse toy that clearly buzzes, and he is obsessed with it. Naughty. Christmas disaster, or what? Jesus Christ. Cats and cameras and all sorts. Jeez Louise. Probably not straight, but what can we do? All that to say, I can't win. Either way, I would love to know if you've read Little Women, watched any of the movie adaptations, what is your allegiance, Joe and Laurie or Amy and Laurie? And if you've watched multiple movie adaptations, does your opinion change depending on which adaptation you are watching? With that said, and with complete Christmas chaos going on around me, I'm going to finish off this penultimate Vlogmas vlog here, and I'll catch up with you very soon for the final instalment of Vlogmas, which will of course be Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and all of the fun stuff that comes with it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.